I'm Brooke Makenna Richards, and I just want to say I am happy that you are here on this channel and on this planet. Now, today might seem like a little more of a darker or depressing video. I promise I'm going to make this subject as uplifting, positive, and motivational as it can possibly be, because I'm going to be discussing stars and what they went through to reach their success. Some of the wealthiest, most well-known celebrities, stars, they started their life as anxious and depressed people. They continue to be anxious and depressed people, but they have overcome and they have let themselves reach success. And I believe that each one of us that are struggling with any type of mental health issues can be successful. We do not have to let it stop us. We do not have to become the mental illness. We can become successful and have a mental illness. Because although the title says from anxious and depressed to success, no, these people probably don't go every day of their lives without mental illness just because they're successful. Success, money, fame, none of that will ever stop the feeling, the chemical imbalance inside of you. But I feel like these stories, when I was reading about them, these stories just made me feel like if they could do it, then I can too. I don't have to let mental illness define me, and I don't have to just succumb to it and say, this is my life now. There's no way I can be successful because I'm anxious all the time or because I'm feeling depressed. You can struggle and find success. You can have both. And even though my mental illness may not ever go away, it can fade, and it's not gonna stop me. So these stories are just a few that I picked out of some of the biggest well-known people in Hollywood that overcame or have embraced their struggles and have turned it into success. The first one is J.K. Rowling, which if you think it's Rowling, she's actually said in an interview that it's rolling. So J.K. Rowling has struggled with depression her entire life. She's very open about this subject and the struggles that she's been through. She kind of turned to writing as an outlet, as most of us do, to let our darkness out. We use art as a place for it to all go. And now when she was about 25 to 28, her darkness, her depression got even darker, and she just fell into this hole of not believing that she wanted to live anymore. And she had a little girl. Her little girl really helped her to overcome it and want to go get help because she wanted to be there for her child. That's such a beautiful story in its own, that she really acknowledged that she needed to get help so she could be there for her daughter. This story is so encouraging because at a time when she was so low, she was writing these books that took, I mean, dozens of sending out to agents to get published. She thought that she would never amount to anything. She thought that these books wouldn't go out on the shelves. She just didn't think she should even live. And now J.K. Rowling is the 9th best-selling author in the world. The next one is Halle Berry. We don't really hear much about her mental illness, or I never have, but researching, she actually tried to take her own life after a failed marriage. Imagine someone as big and as idolized as Halle Berry at one point in her life not wanting to be her anymore, not wanting to be here anymore. And now she holds the 2002's Academy Award for Best Actress and is the only African American woman to have ever won that award. She's such a well-known, successful actress and amazing at it, if I may add. And she also has 2 beautiful kids. Now think about all that she would have lost out on, all that she didn't see was in her future. Now, I knew that Oprah had had a very horrible upbringing, but I guess I didn't realize the amount of trauma and mental instability she felt in those years. When I was doing my research, it said that at 14 years old, she tried to end her own life. Oprah tried to end her own life because she was pregnant and didn't want her dad to find out. Now imagine a world where someone like Oprah wasn't here to be a spokesperson for women, for African Americans, for people who don't have a voice. Oprah is one of the biggest inspirations in my life, and the biggest girl boss that I have ever seen. Beyonce is the next one I'm going to talk about. Now, after Destiny's Child broke up, Beyonce was at her lowest. Her depression was horrible, and she felt like she couldn't do it on her own. She couldn't be a solo artist. She needed those girls. She just thought she was done. Her career was over. Look at her now. She is one of the biggest solo artists in the world and has sold 17.2 million albums worldwide. Imagine if she let that depression stop her. We wouldn't have Beyonce. What? Carey is the next one. Now, he tried to end his life twice as a teen. He turned to comedy, as most comedians do. They come from a very dark background, but his comedy, his stand-up comedy that he was doing, turned into his own sitcom, The Drew Carey Show, that we all know so well. And then he also, you know, had that role in Whose Line Is It Anyway? And is such a well-known comedian for his humor and his just overall personality. Now, Emma Stone, she is one of my favorite actresses of all time, and her childhood was not as easygoing, as funny as she is today. She, at 7 years old, started having severe panic attacks where she would think that the house was burning down. She would have to constantly ask her mom what was going on. If they were going out, she would have to ask her again and again what they were doing, if anything was changing. And this happened for 3 years of just constant breakdowns, panic attacks where she felt like she couldn't breathe. It made her isolate herself, but she didn't let that stop her. She worked on it, she worked hard, and now she is a well-known actress with many, many awards and just started La La Land. It's so good, so good. She's just such a talent, and she didn't let the anxiety stop her. Now, Lily Reinhart. She is from the new Riverdale show on the CW, but right before she got cast for Riverdale, she was in the darkest depression of her life. She was working so hard at going to auditions and keeping a job so she could make money to pay rent, and she was so overwhelmed. And if you have anxiety, you understand that feeling. It actually sent her back home to where her family lives because she just didn't think she'd be able to do it anymore. But she did. She got herself back up on her feet. She was taking anxiety medication and she started auditioning again. It landed her the role of Betty on Riverdale, and now it's like the most popular show on the CW, and she's on the cover of magazines everywhere you go. Now, Bella Hadid, she has always been one that seemed very cool to me. Now, on a show that she was on, she was helping models, and this model was explaining to Bella about her social anxiety and that she was overwhelmed with the whole situation, and Bella actually confided in her that she also had severe social anxiety growing up, and with her famous family, she never liked going on the red carpet, she didn't like talking too much, and so she just kind of stood in the background. As she grew up wanting to be a model, there are certain things, certain responsibilities that come with being a model, being a celebrity. Struggled a lot with that, but she has said that doing it every day, working on it every day, knowing that this is her job, that she just has to do it, has really helped her and pushed her forward. Amanda Seyfried is the next one. She struggled severely as a child with anxiety and OCD to the point where she had convinced herself that she had a tumor in her brain because of these thoughts that kept happening. Her anxiety convinced her of this, as anxiety does to many people. It gives you paranoia. To the highest extent, I've experienced this. For a long time there, she thought that something was really, really wrong with her. But did that stop her? No. She has been in multiple movies, is a well-known name, and she just is such an inspiration that you can go from that to that. Now, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yes, you heard me. The Rock is on this list. He went through a depressive state right after he had to end his football career in his mid-20s because of a back injury. For a long time, he didn't know what to do. He was so lost in that moment. He just fell into a depressive state, and that's when he turned to wrestling. And about a year after doing it, he joined the nation of domination and became The Rock we all know today. And from there, he went on to star in many of the highest grossing movies out there. But imagine if he never got up from his bed. Imagine if the depression slowly got worse and worse and he just let it build. He wouldn't be The Rock we know today. Now, Jim Carrey, his story is yet another of a comedian that has a very dark mind and has had a very dark past. But Jim Carrey has been very expressive about his depression and that he did use humor to cope. And it's just a beautiful thing to see that someone that struggled just like me and you with mental illness is like one of the biggest comedians, the most like talked about people, and just has found success and happiness and peace in his life. In an interview that I was reading about, he talked about that he no longer suffers the way he used to, and that when it rains, but not long enough to immerse him and drown him anymore. When I'm in a terrible headspace, I have to remember that he got out of it, that he works every day to not let the rain drown him. Even as a celebrity, a famous person that has so much money, so much fame, he still works on himself every day, and he's finally found peace. It's so beautiful that it like makes me want to cry. I'm like gonna cry because I'm so emotional, but it's beautiful. So extremely encouraging to everybody out there with a mental illness that it can get better. You just have to let yourself get better. And even though that seems like the hardest thing and you're sitting here thinking, I can't help my depression, I can't do anything about it. That's true. Mental illness is so confusing in a way that you're not in control over. You can't just say, I'm happy now, but you can choose to get the help that you need in any way possible, and you can choose to try to look at the light every day and to hear stories like this that make you think, dang, this depression, this anxiety, this OCD, this bipolar, this mental illness is not me. I hope all of you watching this that feel like you are in just an awful place and you can't get out, I hope you know that there is room on this list for you. There is room for you to become a success story. For you to say, I came out of my darkest times, and I'm here today to tell you that it gets better, that I am the happiest I've ever been. That's what you deserve to say. This is the list you deserve to be on, and it doesn't mean that you have to make billions of dollars, star in movies, be a celebrity. Whatever success looks like to you, you can be on that list. You can get it. I believe you can. I believe all of us can. I think if anything I've learned from these stories, that darkness can really make you see what you want. Because what you turn to in your darkness, what you turn to do, like I turned to writing, that's what you're meant to do. Because even in the darkness, even with the darkness, you were doing it. And so in a way, yes, darkness will always be darkness and always try to pull you down, but there's always that sliver of light. So please don't give up, because you could be the next Oprah, the next J.K. Rowling, the next Beyonce. You could be the next person to change the world. And just because you have a mental illness doesn't disqualify you. These stories have shown me that, and I hope that they've shown you that too. Now, I would love to hear any success stories that you know of down below, or your own personal success stories. If you have those, I would love to hear those down below. Oh, I can't wait to read the comments. And please thumbs up this video if you like these more positive videos. I hope that one day I can make this exact video about myself. So remember to spread beams of light everywhere you go. I love you guys. Bye. I've been quiet for too long.